Hi and welcome back. You're with Terry Erasmus, and today in another bonsai short I'm going to be dealing with this wild olive tree. Today's work is going to include some information about sacrifice branches and why they're important, especially in the early phases of development after collecting an olive like this. And then also just some very basic wiring just to more or less position some of the branches into better angles or positions so that they can continue developing. The time that I'm doing this work is in late autumn, and this is just before olives tend to have another growth spurt. That at least that's where I live. That's what they do. So I'm taking advantage of that now and the growth that will occur to help secure or fix those branches in position after they've been wired. You're often going to find that you get this sucker-like growth from the trunk. This is not something that you're going to generally use in your design unless you're doing some kind of a clump style. So this can be removed. So you can just cut that off so that it doesn't develop any further. But this is something that's just, it's going to constantly be coming out. And so whenever it does, just remove it. When you collect an olive, you're usually going to start with a trunk that has either no branches, or you're going to be working with extremely thick branches that have been cut back. And then you need to develop your structure further from that point. And be careful not to fall into the trap of wanting to achieve the canopy too quickly, meaning that you develop branches very fast in order to do that. Rather take the time and develop girth. As you can see on this branch, this is my first branch. You need to spend probably a few seasons to help or to allow a branch like this to extend as a sacrifice, which is probably you're going to need a bit of space to do this. It's probably going to take up 3 or 4 meters to the side of the tree. But this is what you're going to need in order to develop a decent sized branch. And we're looking at the base of the branch. So we're not interested in what's going on out here, because we're only going to keep the first 10-15 centimeters or so of this branch in this particular case. The use of sacrificed branches to develop the girth means that the branch will look a lot more believable when you consider the size of the trunk versus a very spindly little branch originating from a massive trunk like this one has. The thing is also that if you don't do it now, you may regret not doing it down the line, and then it's going to be too late, because any work that you've done with developing ramification pretty much lost, because you're going to have to allow that branch to grow out so that you have a tremendous amount of sap flow in order for the base of the branch to thicken up. So this sacrifice has now done its job, and I'm now going to use a saw to cut it back. And what I'm doing, I'm going to cut back to this branch, hoping that I can wire this and use that. Worst case scenario is I've got to cut back to this point and start my branch from this point here. It's best to use a nice sharp saw, as fine tooth as possible, and that's going to give you the cleanest cut, which will heal that much faster. We can also cut this branch here. This one is also plenty thick at the base here. So as you can see, the transition from the old branch to the new branch, which I've grown, is a lot more subtle. There is definite taper, but it's not a massive difference. For wiring, I would suggest that you go through the tree and remove branches that you're not going to be needing for the future structure of the tree. So those would be branches that are growing where you've got more than 2 branches at a point. Branches that are growing into the tree can also be removed. Any branches that are going to create some kind of reverse taper, branches that are opposite to one another, so-called bar branches, those all need to be removed, and then you can start wiring. If the tree is still very much at a structural development phase, it's not necessary to defoliate the tree. And, removing the leaves does make it easier to apply the wire, but if you don't have too many leaves to begin with, then it's fine. You can just go ahead and start with the wiring. Now, I'll be using aluminium wire. You can use copper wire. I just generally prefer to use aluminium because it's softer, and the bark of olives is very thin, so it's very easy to remove or to scrape off that bark, especially now because the tree is actively growing. And so I will use aluminium because it's a little bit softer on the bark. It's really only important that you wire the first few centimeters of the branch, because you're not going to keep the entire branch. So save on the time and on the money for the wire, and just wire a section of the branch, and then of course move it into position. If you don't remove the leaves, be sure to then wire between the leaves so that you don't crush them. Sometimes, in a case like this where you have a branch growing pretty much directly on top of the other one, which isn't an ideal situation, because this branch, if allowed to develop, is going to become progressively stronger than the one at the bottom, or conversely, the bottom one is going to become weaker. So what you can do is, through wiring, you can twist this branch so that this branch is lying slightly over to the one side. And if you know that that's what you're going to do, then apply your wire in such a way that the wire tightens when you twist it rather than loosens. I have completed wiring and positioning the branches. If you're wanting branches to thicken up, then obviously you're going to grow them as sacrifices. And at this point, branches that you want to continue developing, you must not cut the tip. But if you're finished, if you feel that the girth of the branch is thick enough, then you can cut the branch back, and obviously now it will bud back further back along the branch, and give you new branches to work with and increase your ramification that way. I'm very happy with the development of the tree so far, and perhaps in the future or in the next mini, we will show hollowing out and detailing this deadwood feature over here on the trunk, and perhaps just developing this quite large gin as well, just give it more detail. But other than that, these branches will now continue to develop, so I will take advantage of the growth spurt that the tree will go through now, and to secure the bends in position, or the branches in the position that they've been wired into, and then also to the growth, the back budding that I get will then also be used to contribute to the ramification of the tree. So that's all about it for today, or for this session. Thanks very much for watching, and if you haven't done so yet, please do subscribe, and until next time, take care. Goodbye.